A group of horned-up little scientists decided to find out once and for all whether homophobic men were secretly just wanting some of that thick, veiny goodness for themselves. They took 64 men, nice, strapped their dongles into an erection-measuring robot, and then played them some erotic cinema. That started with the normal stuff, guy on guy, girl on girl, guy on guy, and then some more niche categories for the real pervs, like guy on girl. They tested all of the men's homophobia levels with a questionnaire. 35 men were deemed homophobic, 24 were chill as hell. Penile circumference was measured continuously to monitor physiological sexual arousal, as you do. You'll often see a quote from the abstract bandied around that seems to point to homophobic men being attracted to men.
Only the homophobic men showed an increase in penile erection to male homosexual stimuli.
The penologists concluded that homophobia may be associated with an unconscious or denied homosexual arousal. This study is widely cited in research exploring the psychological and physiological associations between homophobia and wanting to get railed like Jesus did. And that idea has permeated into the culture to the point where now when somebody is being homophobic, you'll see straight allies of queer people calling them gay with no sense of irony whatsoever. The gay homophobe is kind of a trope at this point, like the gay basher. It happened to Justin on the American version of Queer as Folk, filmed in Canada. It happened to Kurt on Glee. Slate had an article called Homophobic? Maybe You're Gay, which is honestly a banger title, even though I disagree with some of the points in the article. It's come to be known now as Haggard's Law, or the law of inverse homosexuality. The more vocally opposed a person is to homosexuality, the more likely they are to be gay themselves and closeted about it. It was named after Ted Haggard, who was named that because he was. He was an anti-gay religious leader, and they are their own closeted gay trope at this point. The self-hating baguette who becomes a raging bigot out of envy, fear, or projection. A virulent homophobe. There are even songs about this. One of the best examples, and a previously ironic but now kind of genuine problematic fave of mine, is Jewel's Pieces of You. You're gonna love this. You are gonna love this.
You say he's a faggot. Does it make you want to hurt him? You say he's a faggot. Do you want to kick in his brains? You say he's a faggot. Does it make you sick to your stomach? You say he's a faggot. Are you afraid you're just the same? Faggot, faggot. Do you hate him 'cause he's pieces of you? You say he's a Jew.
It's the best song ever written. Nobody can deny that. Nobody can deny that. I actually, I paid for the rights to this song. I paid Jewel $50 American. So somebody please send that back to me on PayPal. I'm sure it's linked in the description. She came out there on that stage and dropped some hard fucking and tucked herself into a hero's bed that night. Which is basically what's been happening these days online and off the online. It's being said by well-meaning cis straight people, but occasionally it's not straight people. And that's more of what I want to talk about right now. So gather round, my Caelans. It's time for a found family meeting. So this homophobes are gay trope, I've seen a lot of this in the wake of my investigation into online conversion therapy, where I investigated online conversion therapy by doing online conversion therapy. But there's this tweet that has now been deleted that I think is a prime example of what I'm talking about. It read,
"Controversial statement, but I don't believe there's a virulently homophobic man alive who hasn't either had sex with men or wants to."
You might be thinking, hey, that's right. You hear about this on American News Network all the time. It's totally a real phenomenon. I empathize with having that reaction, but that is a textbook example of confirmation bias. You see a few articles and you start to think, hey, this is happening with a pretty noticeable frequency. Maybe there's a pattern to this. And then you see it a few more times and you're like, okay, now there's definitely too many examples for this to be a coincidence. And then eventually we get to, okay, this completely confirms what I've started to believe. With so many examples, how could it not? I mean, I know all homophobes are gay because I've never read an article about a homophobe not being gay. But if every time someone committed a homophobic hate crime or enacted anti-queer legislation or kicked their kid out for being gay, you saw a headline saying, virulent homophobe is discovered to be straight, you'd probably start to think, hey, seems like a minimal number of these people are secretly gay. But you don't see those articles because straight person is homophobic isn't going to end in ad revenue. And I get why, because a secretly gay homophobe is salacious, it's delicious, it's content, it's cathartic. So cathartic to be able to say, you see this politician enacting anti-gay bills, he's sucking on twinkle like he's auditioning for Human Centipede the Rusical. He's no fucking better than I am, he can't judge me. But there's a danger in seeing these cases and using them as the baseline. If you claim that all of the most dangerous homophobic men are actually into dudes, then the hate crimes they commit, the dangers they pose, the harassment they inflict are now no longer even oppression. It's just inter-community violence. But worse than that, it's just not true. It's not borne out by the facts. Let's talk about that infamous study where they measured the thickness of the thick while sexy little videos are playing. There are several issues with this study. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor of the living. I have a PhD in ghosts, and ghosts can't get hard because worms drank their blood after they died, so feel free to check my sources. Let's start with the notable quotable.
Only the homophobic men showed an increase in penile erection to male homosexual stimuli.
That's true, but also misleading, because it seems to be saying that all of them were set upon by the thickening, but they weren't. It was just about half. So even the single study being presented to prove homophobes are secretly gay, at best could be said to be saying some are gay, which, yeah, some of all groups are gay men. There are even some straight women who are probably secretly gay men. Anecdotally, I've been with thousands of men, and plenty of them got a little chub, a little teacup erection after an argument or when stressed. When that blood gets pumping, sometimes your body is like, thicken. But not anecdotally, whatever that's called. Penis scientists say that non-sexual psychological arousal, such as emotional excitement, may lead to increased blood flow as part of the autonomic nervous system responses, offering a potential explanation for emotionally induced erections. For example, studies have shown a little chub may also be an indication of fear or anxiety. Some people cannot get it up when they're stressed, and some are cranking it like it's a button you have to press every 3 hours or you die. And for some people, maybe it is. And in case it wasn't obvious, data shows that a defensive response heart rate pattern, which is normally elicited by fear-provoking stimuli, is displayed in homophobic men while looking at pictures of explicit sexual activity between two men. So there's the emotional and psychological aspect to it, but also I think it's just as likely that some of the homophobic men in the study may have just been experiencing fear or anxiety and thinking, oh god, it's gay shit, don't get hard, don't get hard, don't get hard, they'll think you're a faggot, fuck, I'm getting hard. Again, I'm not saying there aren't homophobic men who are repressing their desire towards men. I just went to conversion therapy for this channel, and those are definitely some gay-ass homophobes, but they're super open about it. Kind of. So seeing that an increased girth and tumescence alone is twin names. These are my daughters. Girth and tumescence. To me. So seeing that increased girth and tumescence alone is a flawed measurement of objective sexual arousal, horntopologists developed other methods of determining arousal. One method that accounts for those anxiety cues and measures behavioral patterns is similar to the first test. They sit a man in a room, get a feel for his homophobia or homonegativity using a psychological exam, and then show him every type of porn. There's no junk strap measuring tape. Instead, he gets a button he can press to skip the current image. They found that people will unconsciously linger on whatever they're attracted to. But more importantly, they found that people will skip much quicker looking at images they find threatening. The results showed that some men high in homophobia, but not all, spent less time viewing homosexual than heterosexual erotic photographs. In other words, all individuals high in homophobia may not necessarily have an impulsive or latent attraction toward the same sex, and may even be repulsed. In the paper, Homophobia, an Impulsive Attraction to the Same Sex, they try to conceptualize the behavior pattern impulsive approach tendencies towards homosexual stimuli, IAHS. This concept reflects an automatic unconscious behavioral tendency to approach or look longer at homosexual-related cues or stimuli, assessed using not only how long men would look at the photos, but tracking their eyes to see where they spent their time looking. This measures how quickly and strongly a person is drawn impulsively toward homosexual images without the influence of conscious reflection. The paper highlights that among men with high homophobia scores, those with higher IHSs tend to look significantly longer at homosexual photographs. paragraphs, implying that implicit, automatic processes of sexual interest or attraction may coexist with explicit homophobic attitudes. Basically, what we can prove right now is that some homophobic men are attracted to men, and a subgroup of the most outwardly homophobic find it hard not to click off when they see two men inside each other. And guess what? I get it. But they aren't the only breed of homophobe, just the only homophobe that probably wants to get bread. But if you've watched my series on the year I spent undercover in anti-trans and anti-queer hate groups, you'll know that I've often discussed that disgust is often overlooked as a key component in anti-gender, sexual, and romantic minority sentiments. And I mean pure, undiluted disgust. The kind of disgust that makes your top lip curl, makes your skin crawl, your blood boil. And that kind of disgust, it has nothing to do with hating yourself. It's a hatred to what you find repulsive. It's the same visceral reaction as someone who sees maggots on their plate. It propels us into a self-protective action to ensure our survival against what our body perceives as harmful, distasteful, or otherwise offensive. When I discuss what homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia are, I always include the word disgust. Distrust, disgust, fear, hatred, or prejudice. These are the emotions underlying it. Outside of the community, the disgust towards queer people isn't usually included in their understanding of these terms, but numerous studies have been done across the world that show that disgust plays a huge role in the perception of us. The reason the reaction to disgust is so strong is that it's often associated with the sense that something you consider pure has been tainted or violated. So to homophobic men, that could be anything from gender roles or norms to the sanctity of masculinity, men's dominion over women, or God's divine plan. And the rejection of those things as outdated or harmful dilutes their power, and it always comes back to power. The disgust at impurity fosters an outrage that feels moral to them, like there's only one course of action to take when someone is so detrimental to the fabric of society, so dangerous to the people in that society. You have to get rid of them. Which, when we're talking about like a serial child rapist, pretty much everyone would agree that a society cannot abide people like that existing in it. Unless they're like president or whatever. If you heard a story about 3 men beating up someone like that, you'd likely feel entirely justified in feeling no empathy for that person. Because disgust is where the lines in the sand are drawn. So the argument that homophobes are gay actually crowd is making is that that disgust has been internalized. It's self-disgust that gets projected outward. And you can sort of see the argument when it's like a guy attacks a man he's attracted to because he's so disgusted with himself that he turns that disgust outward and makes the object of his desire into the subject of his shame, anger, and violence. And that totally happens. Of course it does. But there's absolutely no scientific evidence to say that's the norm. And it's patently ridiculous to think it's the rule. The theory falls apart under even the tamest scrutiny. A man finds out his child is gay and pours boiling water on him. He must have wanted to fuck dudes. A man attacks 2 lesbians on the train. Just wants that pussy. A horrible little woman kicks out her gay son because she's ashamed of what her friends will think. Total fucking les, am I right? I'm sorry, but that's not tracking. That's disgust and anger and fear. And those absolutely work to explain these situations. Every single one of these examples is easily explained by disgust born from seeing gayness and queerness as impurities. I think we all know that not all homophobic people are queer, so I got to thinking.
A dangerous pastime?
I know. What possible usefulness is there in saying homophobic men are actually all-out fucking dudes? Why are people so quick to throw this accusation around? What reason is there other than to serve as a gotcha moment? And why is being gay a gotcha at all? So it seems pretty obvious to me that the point is you're a hypocrite, a self-hating little and if we're disgusting, so are you. Ha! Gotcha. You're nasty. We're weaponizing the disgust that leads to us being attacked, killed, and oppressed against the people committing those acts. And I wonder if that furthers our liberation. Does it tip the scales in our favor? Or is it just petty cathartic shitposting? Which, no judgment for that. I love me some petty cathartic shitposting. I started a podcast to do just that and only that. But why do we do this? I don't think it's because queer people actually think it's an insult to call a homophobe gay. I don't think we're all secretly homophobes ourselves. I think it's just less terrifying, less depressing, less hopelessness-inducing than believing the issue is systemic and widespread. It's less jarring to think you hate me because you want to be me than you hate me because you fundamentally don't think I should be allowed to exist. Only one of those would make a cute t-shirt, right? Wrong. But when it reinforces harmful myths about queer people, redirects all onus for violence back onto us, and either ignores or erases the roots of our oppression, well, I would say that's actually detrimental to combating that oppression. How do you effectively fight homophobia when you obfuscate its causes? And I guess it's not quippy enough to say that toxic masculinity, religious indoctrination, white supremacy, patriarchy, transphobia, misogyny all contribute to the disgust that informs homophobia. And to the sissies, the straighties, the straggots, the NQCs. If you see someone being homophobic, you can just call them a piece of shit instead of calling them gay. Because all homophobes are pieces of shit, even if they aren't gay. I'm currently working on a few investigations, so if you want to follow along with those and get secretive information not available anywhere else, you can sign up for a membership on Patreon or YouTube and see them happening live on my members' Discord. Please do. I just got hit with some big medical expenses that were not in my budget. Sharing this video even to your own email tells stupid YouTube that this video is worth watching. So after liking and subscribing, do me a huge favor and do that shit. Check out my podcast, Respect the Dead, where we talk shit about people who are dead and who sucked. Like L. Ron Hubbard, Mother Teresa, Fred Trump, whatever Elon's grandfather's name was. I also have merch. It's cute as hell, and something tells me you would look so good in it. And by it, I mean a mug. Okay. Love you, bye.